Okay, this is an interesting one. Find the integral of secant cubed. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this and we're going to change it to the integral of secant squared x secant x dx. So secant squared times secant is secant cubed. Okay. Now we're going to let u, whoa, what happened there? Let u equal secant x, and then du is then secant x tangent x. And we're going to let dv be secant squared x dx, and then the integral of that is tangent. Okay, so we go over here. Notice I left a lot of room on this one and got rid of the formula because it's kind of a long problem. So this becomes uv, so secant tangent, minus the integral of v du. So that's going to be, let's see, that's going to be secant x tangent times tangent tangent squared x dx. Okay. Now, here's something that a bunch of people won't think of. This part is done, so we don't have to worry about that. We just copy it down over and over. This part, tangent squared, if you remember from your formula sheet from pre-calculus, tangent squared is secant squared minus 1. So we're going to go ahead and change it to that. And then this is now equal to secant x tangent x minus the integral of, if I distribute this in here, I'm going to get secant cubed x minus secant x dx. Okay. Now, I can break this apart into two separate equations. So copy this down. All right, we'll do this part first. So we're going to make minus this. So that's going to become plus the integral of secant x dx minus the integral of this, which is secant cubed x dx. Okay. Now this part's easy to do. We have a formula for that. Secant x tangent x plus the integral of secant x is the natural log of the absolute value of secant x plus tangent x. Minus the integral of secant cubed x dx. Now, here's the big problem. This is what I started with. So if I try to do the same thing over and over again, I'm going to keep getting, this is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I definitely don't want to go down that road. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring this down here just so that you can, because this is all equal to the integral of secant cubed x dx. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this. I'm going to add it to both sides, just like I would an algebra problem. And once you think of that, you probably got this figured out. So this is 2 times the integral of secant cubed x dx is equal to secant x tangent x plus the natural log of the absolute value of secant x plus tangent x. And now all I have to do is divide by 2. And I get 1/2 secant x tangent x plus 1/2 natural log absolute value secant x plus tangent x. And this is equal to the integral of secant cubed x dx, which is what I wanted to figure out. So we had this weird little step that we had to do right there that we haven't had to do before. So you would use that in a situation where you would have to repeatedly do the same thing over and over and over again for infinity. And that took care of the problem.